Welcome back. You're at the Faculty Factory Podcast, and I'm Kim Skorupski here at UTMB, the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas, looking at my new friend and colleague, Dr. David W. Niesel. Everybody, listen up. Dr. David Niesel got his PhD in 1980 from North Carolina State University. He then joined UTMB in the Department of Microbiology and Immunology in 1983. In 1997, he was named Vice Dean for the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. He was appointed the chairman of the department in 2000. He became the dean in 2013 and the UTMB chief research officer in 2015. He retired from full-time employment in 2021 and remains an adjunct professor. And a little kind of spoiler alert, he and his colleague, Dr. Norbert Herzog, do a radio show that just passed 1,000 episodes. It's weekly, right?
Weekly.
It's called the, oh my gosh, Medical Discovery News, yes?
Yes.
Medical Discovery News. We'll put a link in your episode. Oh, so this weekly radio show with over 1,000 episodes, a podcast, and a 500-word column that happens every week in the Daily News, the longest lived, oldest newspaper in the state of Texas, and I look forward to reading it all the time. So super, super cool guy doing really creative work, and he is here in part because I had invited him after being told by many people when I came to UTMB and created this Advanced Careers in Aging, LLC, Lifelong Leadership Collaborative. I had a seminar and a workshop and a panel conversation with recent retirees and group coaching and all the fun things. And Dr. Niesel was one of those panelists and was resoundingly popular, still get people bragging about him. We did our second annual panel last year and people were still talking about him from the last year's panel. So it's got a super cool story, and I'm just so happy to have you here to just tell us about your process, if you don't mind. What were the steps that led up to your finally saying, okay, I'm gonna peace out to this, from this full-time gig?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that kind introduction, Kim. It's been a journey for me here at UTMB, and I still love contributing back to the university and to the advance of biomedical science in general. And I think for me, that's going to be something that's going to remain well into retirement. For me, I think the main message I want to get across to people listening is retirement is not something that you just decide to do. And for me, I think the key was to plan for retirement. You got an idea and there's several components of that. Where do you want to retire? What do you want to do when you retire? Who are you in retirement? And I think that's a major one that people have to come to grips with. And I'll spend I'll spend some time talking about that. And then I think the last critical question is, are you ready? Are you ready for retirement? And that kind of goes to the point of not everybody's ready for retirement at the same time. And for me, as I got closer to retirement age, I could feel the pressure of thinking about retirement and trying to start to plan on how I was going to approach that. But I know from many of my colleagues, both at UTMB and across the country, that comes at different times for people. And I think that's part where the planning and the assessment of where you are and what you want to accomplish with the rest of your life comes into play. So I'm a firm believer in having an idea of what you want to do. Just because you're retired doesn't mean there's nothing to do. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And for me, it was important to have some idea of how I wanted to proceed. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along here. The other message is it changes. It changes as you get into retirement. You may have one idea of what retirement is going to be like for you. And as you experience things on the outside, new opportunities come up and you end up changing, what you're doing. And I think that's healthy. And I think you want to be open to that. The bottom line is you want to do what makes you happy. And that's kind of one of the major reoccurring themes for me too, is do what makes you happy. And that will drive your retirement, and that'll drive and keep you happy as you move forward. For me, the process of retirement, we had been talking about it for a number of years. We had to address where we wanted to retire. Did we want to stay in the Houston Galveston region or go elsewhere? Um, Family considerations were a big deal. Both Janet and I have family on the East Coast, so we were not near family in the Houston Galveston area. But our son and daughter live in Central Texas, and that became a focal point of where we wanted to look. Plus, I was here in Austin in the early 1980s as a postdoc, and we loved the area. We maintained connections here. So it was a natural for us to look here. We had a number of requirements that we wanted to make sure we hit when we retired. We wanted to be a place where we could get good health care. We wanted to be in a place that had some natural beauty, in a place where we could afford. We love university environments, so it was important to stay close to an academic center so that there would be an opportunity to fulfill that need too. So it took us a couple years. I mean, it sounds like a long time, but it really wasn't. We considered a lot of different places. We looked into the real estate markets with the requirements that we had in mind. And eventually we decided on Central Texas, and we found a little city north of Austin that had all the attributes or the advantages of living near Austin without having to live there directly. And that's where we ended up. It was still inexpensive at the time. And so I think we made a good choice in doing that. Now, here's another thing to think about is if you're a faculty member at a university, you have actually a big footprint at that university. It's not just about your research. It's just not just about your teaching, but you contribute in so many different ways. And I felt strongly that because of all the things that I had done and was doing, that it was important to give my bosses, the provost and the president, a heads up that I was thinking about retirement. And I told them about a year before I was going to retire and asked that it be kept confidential, which they did, which I truly appreciate. And the advantage in that is I was able to spend a good amount of time finishing open items, things that were under my watch that I wanted to make sure didn't languish after I left. And also to prepare people that I worked with to fulfill those roles after I was gone. And I took that very seriously, and I think that made me feel good in retiring, that I was able to provide that transition for people. Why did I retire? I had gotten to the point in my career where I was in senior leadership for many years, and I truly enjoyed it. I truly enjoyed mentoring people, contributing to the big picture in terms of research and education, also in the community. And I felt after about 20 years in academic leadership, if I hadn't done it by then, there was probably not much of a chance that I was going to contribute much. Well, I could contribute more, but not at the scale that would keep me happy or have the impact that I wanted. And I think that's a lesson for leadership too. Is it's good. It's good for transitions in leadership to occur. It brings in new people with new ideas, and that contributes to the organization. So that's one word to people is, consider, your point in your career, make the way for new people to take over, and bring in those new ideas and fresh blood that keeps the organization strong and really moving forward. So,
That's great.
yeah.
I'm remembering all these nuggets, and now I'm remembering why Dr. Malloy was kind of resonated with what you said. You've dropped a bunch of things. I don't want to like interrupt your flow here. Are you want
No,
to
go
go
ahead.
on? Okay, because I have some notes on some things you said that I'd love to kind of like dig a little deeper. Or as my sister says, double click on that. Let's double click. You said whatever you earlier on, you said do what makes you happy. Um, do what makes you happy. And when you said that, I couldn't help but think of those of us in the trenches and those just starting in mid-career. Do they know how to be happy? I mean, this is kind of like a provocative question, Dave, but when you said it kind of like just do what makes you happy, I thought, do we even know what makes us happy? I just got
Yeah.
back from giving a few lectures, and golly, there are a lot of people in our space now as a PhD, you know this, who are not happy and are very anxious and very unsettled. When you say just do what makes you happy, I'm wondering if you have any further insights or any thoughts about certain phenotypes of people who really don't know how to be happy other than being fill in the blank in the lab, in the office, in the clinic, in the classroom, in the big meetings. What are your thoughts about that, Dave?
Yeah, I think that's a huge issue. And I'll tell you a story about people in my generation. They were great scientists. They made a lot of contributions. It got to a point where they were getting frustrated because they couldn't perform at the level that they did before. Had trouble getting grants. Some of their information was dated, and uh, and they came to the conclusion that they should retire. Uh, they retired, and they would come and talk to me, and some people were just lost. They didn't know what to do beyond an academic career, and they were very unhappy that they don't feel like they they had purpose anymore. And from the literature, we know that one of the big things about retirement is losing your professional identity. And it's really important for people to recognize that and to make sure that they're comfortable with moving on, and what they're going to do, is going to make them happy. So, that's one side, I think, of the equation. The other equation is there's a lot of pressure on younger people nowadays. I mean, it is intense. It is having to show value every day, and you're only as good as what you're doing now. And that's a huge amount of pressure on young people. And this is where I think the perspective of the more established faculty and even retirees could come into play, because we've felt that, we've experienced those feelings. And I think reminding young people that there is a way forward, and you may have to change some of the things you're doing, but not to despair. It's a common feeling. It's something that almost everybody experiences, and that you have to adapt to be happy in that kind of environment. So I think mentoring and talking with colleagues is really important part of that. And I think those kinds of lines of communication, I think, could stand a little revision and maybe updating so that the young people, especially the trainees, know that they're not alone.
You're so right, Dave, because especially we know about social comparison. And it's almost like apples and oranges when we have our early career faculty members comparing themselves to the prior generations that were seemingly getting grants left and right, and NIH was flush, and other traditional funding mechanisms were a little bit more attainable. And so they're seeing themselves and saying, gosh, I'm never going to make it like Dr. So and so. It's because it is the pay lines are gone, the funding's not there, certain topics can't even be touched. So it's can be discouraging when we compare ourselves to folks in prior generations, or certainly a few generations ahead of us. It's not the same space. And I love how you are kind of putting that on us, the older generation, to recognize that it's not so much just, get in the lab at 6 in the morning and leave at midnight and just work hard and it'll happen. It's not the same ball game out there.
Yeah,
So a
I
little
agree.
bit more grace and mercy, and certainly a different ball game for our clinician scientists. My goodness.
There's another message that I'd like to deliver today, and that is biomedical scientists and clinicians have an incredible skill set, and these people are valuable for all the things they bring to the table. They have people skills that a lot of people on the outside academia don't have. Some do, but I think in academia, you're trained to utilize those people skills. We have problem solvers. These people are problem solvers. And another message here is in retirement, one observation that I had was our skills are valuable out there in the community. You don't have to be an educator. You don't have to be a clinician. You don't have to be a researcher. The skills we have are coveted by people in business and out in the community. And one of the things that I found out, and my friend Skip Brown has this message, is you will be in demand in retirement. And in fact, the problem is not finding things to do, it's picking the ones that you really want to do. Because people recognize that our training and our experiences in academia in a university setting gives us a skill set that's highly desirable that people want to tap into.
Yeah, I
And
remember
so,
you saying that last year, and that was such a revelation to many people, as opposed to thinking that we're just ivory tower people who are these, brainiac nerds who can barely communicate with lay public, and recognizing that those critical thinking skills and the problem solving and the innovation and the collaborative nature and thinking in systems, all those things, as you're right, I love that word, coveted by our communities, or we don't even understand or can't even begin to appreciate how much value we could add if we simply ask and experiment. And as you said, you don't like that, it's an experiment. Well, try something else.
yeah. So here's a call to business. Is we live in a world right now where communicating truth is especially valuable. We live in a world full of conspiracy theories and misinformation. Science is truth, medicine is truth. And we need to be out there communicating with people because we are a source of that truth, and it can combat some of the truly outrageous misinformation and conspiracy theories out there. One of the things I've done recently this spring is I signed up here in Georgetown, Texas, for a community-based education program. And I did it because I was getting so distressed at some of the misinformation out there. So I gave a series of 6 lectures to community groups on infectious diseases and vaccines. And the challenge was bringing it down to the level of the community, which actually was it was intriguing, and it was fun to do that. And I had between 40 and 70 people show up these lectures. So people are interested in what we have to say. You have to make it understandable for them. But there's a desire out there to hear, what we do or what we did, what's going on in a way that they can understand. And it was very satisfying to do something like that. And I recommend that to all my faculty colleagues. Get out and engage the public, because they're going to listen. Not everybody's going to buy it, but not everybody always does. But you do reach people, and they do certainly appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, that's certainly a way to, when you mentioned identity, of maintaining a foothold in our identity as academic health professionals, and establishing a new identity in our communities and organizations and synagogues, churches, temples, as someone who is willing to share and help people better understand what we do. So I think that's a perfect way of exposing us to maintaining our identity and morphing that into something new and relevant. So I remember that was a great piece of advice, and people really love that awareness, that aha moment.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some things that I would give advice on and not to do.
Okay, good.
So first, don't approach retirement without planning. You have to plan, because I think that increases the chances of success. There's some people that have retired, and their whole plan was, well, we're going to travel, we're going to see the world, we're going to see the United States, we're going to see all the national parks. Well, everybody I've talked to that had that in mind, it comes down to a little travel is fun, too much travel is not so much fun, and people burn out. So you have to have something rather than just travel.
And play.
Another key thing is, a lot of us are in leadership positions. Give your successors room to establish what they want to do in their vision. One of the things that I think is devastating to people that take over a new position is when the former leader interferes, and either directly by giving too much advice, or indirectly by influencing people that report to that leader. And that is just devastating. It leads to all kinds of bad effects. So please don't do that. And then the other thing is, don't underestimate retirement on your families. Retirement is a transition. You have to work at that to feel comfortable in the new role. You have to realize that as academicians, especially in the health science center, we all live and work at the speed of light every day. And suddenly that pressure is gone. For me, I think that might have been the hardest part. Right after I retired, I'd still get up at 6 o'clock. That was sleeping in, actually, and I'd answer email. And work on stuff. And, it just takes a while to get over that. And you got to expect that. You're not going to shift gears that quickly. It's nice to have a little something to do to kind of keep that professional identity. I was very fortunate to have this community outreach radio show, column, and podcast that I truly enjoy doing. And if you can find something like that, it's a great way to preserve your professional identity. And it's also, if you have the time and you have time to reach out to people in the community, it's a bridge. It's a bridge to get more involved in the community and it's a bridge to get great satisfaction in terms of what you want to do professionally. Well, not professionally anymore, but in retirement.
Why do some faculty members feel a little squirrely about some people knowing that they're ready to or thinking about retirement? And I'll tell you, I've heard this many times when I was at Hopkins and here at UTMB, when I'm like, gosh, why are our enrollment numbers for these great panel conversations only around, 20? And some people said, we know nobody wants anybody to know that they're thinking about it. I'm like, my gosh, that's part of what we're trying to do is reduce stigma, normalize this. And as a gerontologist, I want this to be just as part of our conversation as onboarding early career faculty and talking about your 403B and investing and maximizing your contributions to plan for it the same way. Why do we need to keep it confidential? What is your perspective on not letting people know, writing you off too soon, or what's up with that?
Well, for me, and I've seen this happen before, is when your colleagues understand that you'll be walking away, your value seems to become diminished as a leader. Everybody's looking to the next step. People will not go along with the flow because you're only going to be here for another 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, whatever the heck it is. And if you, I felt it was important to let the people that I reported to know so they could do some planning. But for me, it was much more comfortable. I guess working behind the scenes to finish up the things that I knew were important to get done, and to, to set things up for the succession that the person that would replace me in the roles that I had. So I understand your points, and I think those are good ones. But I think it can be, depending on the culture,
Yeah.
it can work against you too.
Yeah, and I could see in your example, Dave, how if you're in the middle of a project or a grant or some continuous quality improvement or any kind of a project, and as you're saying this, gosh, if Kim's going to be gone in a year, this timeline is it's not going to work out, and who's going to be in her place? And now I may not carry as much weight in terms of saying, hey, let's do this. These are the deliverables. Let's shift to this. Let's go there. That certainly professional courtesy, maybe yes, but strategically, some people might think I'm a lame duck. I'm going to go to Dave, who's going to take her place because he's going to have the plan. She's a short timer. Thanks, but no thanks, Kim. So I can imagine how if we and obviously we have great pride in these projects that we want to see them through fruition before we start providing off ramps for people to start discounting us. So I think you're right. It is a delicate balance between making sure we still have the credibility to finish what we started and preparing for succession and transitions with respect and ample time for those who will be picking up our pieces to do it and do it well. So it's got to be, a really, as you said, a very planful, thoughtful, purposeful process.
Yes.
Earlier, you also said when we feel like our impact may be diminishing or we're no longer contributing like we used to. Gosh, I'm wondering how you know it. I had somebody ask me that and when I was in Columbus recently, like, how do you know? And I hearkened back to Dana Wilde saying, I knew it was time to go when I was asked to attend a meeting, try to schedule a meeting to plan for another meeting that was going to ultimately put on this big meeting. And she said, no, I'm out. And then somebody else said, oh, I knew I was going to retire when somebody said I had to learn a new app or a new program or a new system. And he was just like, nah, done. So that's kind of like a discrete kind of the proverbial straw. Or I give examples of, when you look for a house and you kind of look through 50 houses and you walk in the one and you're like, oh, this is the one. So sometimes I imagine it would be like a lightning bolt of, all right, game over, I'm out of here. But sometimes I'm wondering, how do you know when you're no longer making the impact or, when your relevance, you're becoming more of a like, oh, people are patting you on the head and like, oh, aren't you sweet? Versus, come on, you've been talking about the same thing, or we got some new young upstarts who really want to take over, but you're gumming up the works up front there. The slow ponies need to move to the side. How do you know when
Yeah.
the impact, what are the markers that maybe
Yeah.
you need to think about or get some honest feedback or really, maybe consult a coach or
I think that's a great idea. Consult a coach and talk about that. For me, one thing that was on my mind my last years in my position is I had seen people at the university who stayed on far too long, and they were ineffective. People they had diminished impact. They were hanging on, I think, because they didn't really know what to do next. And it wasn't a good look. And so that coupled with, my philosophy that, if you're in a role long enough, you need to move on. You got to give, a chance for new ideas to be there. I think that was always something probably in the last 10 years of my career that I had thought about. Um, Now, what probably hastened me to make that decision was COVID-19 in 2020. I mean, that was a game changer. It, it really upended our academic life. I remember coming to the university, uh, sitting in my office, overlooking what is usually one of the busiest foot traffic areas on campus, and I'm not seeing anybody all day long. No students would stop by. It bothered me a lot, and I think it reminded me that those types of personal interactions were really important to me, and it kind of hastened me along looking for a new way to have an impact. And I think that's, those two things, watching people stay beyond their time, and then the current situation, in 2020, that's what pushed me to consider retirement at that time.
yeah. Dr. Niesel, what would you tell people who don't know what else to do? They
I think,
really are struggling and they can't imagine doing anything else. They think this is all I'm good at. I know nothing else. I love it. I live and breathe this. I'm gonna die with my boots on and they'll have to drag
ugh,
me out of here kicking and screaming. Any thoughts about that?
yeah, and I know some people like that have that attitude. And you know what, Kim? I think they're generally happy doing that. And if you remember at the beginning, I said you got to do what makes you happy. And for some people, that might be the answer. All right. Now, for others, I think it's important that they talk to people that either have some professional expertise in terms of transitioning to retirement, or talk to their colleagues who have retired and ask what they're doing and see what's available out there. I think people will be shocked at how much out there is what they can do that they'll really feel satisfied and appreciated for. And so it's that discovery piece that I think is going to be really important.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been rich as I knew it would be, and I think I'd love to leave the parting comments to you. I mean, you've given us some things not to do, you've told us what to do. Anything you've noticed over since leaving full time? Like I know your microbiology, immunology, what's, thoughts on the status of the faculty gut microbiome? What's the state of affairs in the gut? Anything that you'd kind of like leave us with some wisdom?
Yeah. For me, I mean, it's been important to stay attached to my discipline, which I can through the other things I do, the radio show and the podcast, that's important. It's important to talk with people in the community. Um, National polls have showed that scientists and medical doctors are among the most respected people in America. And you're going to feel that when you're out there. And you don't have to be using the big words, and you don't have to be trying to impress people. Just how you approach things and how you do things is enough. And I think if people could see that, I think that that would lower that activation energy you need to get over the bar, to seriously consider retirement. So retirement is great. You get to do mostly what you want to do when you want to do it, and you can still feel like you had an impact and that you're benefiting people. And I can't think of a better situation than that.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.